Do you guys ever kind of like maybe burn a bridge that you regretted burning or part ways with someone and then you run into them later and you think like, I really wish that I would have maintained a good relationship with this person?
Maybe one or two. I learned that lesson early that you have to end things the right way. You don't have to like a person.
Yeah.
You don't have to agree with them. But unless they just deliberately disrespected you as a human being, your
Yeah.
family, the people you love, then it's like, all right, just go your separate ways because you might cross paths. So I can think of one guy. You know what? I used to work for this gym, and it's actually down the street from here. And
I'm going to go down there and tell them you're here.
well, they're out of business now.
Oh, okay.
But me and the not the owner, but he was like the manager or whatnot, got into it, and we ended things horribly. But then we saw each other maybe like 5 years later, and we're both grown men. And we're like, look, bro, like that was stupid.
Yeah.
You know, like it's.
Oh, I'm glad
it
you
wasn't
guys
worth
squashed it,
But yeah,
though.
yeah, it was all love now.
And the important thing, too, is you really never know where situations are going to take you, right? Like
Right.
in one example, maybe you quit your job and you tell your boss, I hate you. And then you go on, you date a girl, she's beautiful, you meet her father. Oops, that's your old boss. Like you never know what could happen. In another example, you could be a team who surprisingly loses their middle linebacker to a torn ACL and has another inside linebacker hit free agency and sign with another team. And you go look at free agency and you see a guy that used to play for you and you say, hey, remember how we were on your side? You know, I know that things ended on a sour note here, Bobby. I know that you found out you were being released, and we've apologized for that, and we're sorry about what we did. But man, we've been saying nothing but good things about you. How about you come on back? We'd love to have you back, right? Like that's an example of Pete and John. The way it ended was sour. Right? Everyone knows that. This was not like, all right, see you later, like being in a good bit. This was Bobby being hurt about the way he found out that his future was no longer in Seattle. John and Pete apologized for it publicly at a press conference in March when they addressed Russell Wilson's trade and also Bobby's release and took accountability for it and said he never should have found out that way. Like he found out through a third party and we should have been the ones to tell him. It's difficult when a player's his own agent, but blah, blah, blah. Which then Bobby said, hey, it's not that complicated. Anyways, this is now in the past because Bobby's back here in Seattle. But what's one thing we learned from this? It's kind of like what you learned years later with that guy, that sometimes you just got to be bigger than that. And sometimes you just have to recognize that, like, you know what, let's not hold on to this. Let's not hang on to this grudge. One thing you can say about the Seahawks, Pete Carroll and John, for whatever flaws they have as an organization, right? Like not drafting great defensive linemen. Right? Like you can point to anything. One of the things that they have done so well is culture. And as a result of that culture, maintaining positive relationships with guys when they leave or having guys realize years later that Seattle's pretty all right.
Yeah, and Bobby is a good example of that because there's no denying when it went down and Bobby goes to L.A., something wasn't right. Communication was jacked up. Bobby finds out in a shady way that he's being drafted. Being released. But then the Hawks say, no, actually, that's not how it went down. But they found a way to mend and come back. And how do you do that? I think that there are conversations outside of the public because, you know, we get what we can that made this okay. That made it okay for Bobby to come back because he felt in some type of way they didn't completely disrespect him. If he felt completely disrespected, like they didn't cherish the time that he was here, that they did not honor this man as the leader and one of the best, if not the best linebacker this franchise has ever seen, then he wouldn't be here right now. So work was done behind the scenes. And that work a year ago led to this moment.
Also, just a mindset has led to this moment, that mindset belonging to Pete Carroll. This was Pete Carroll at the NFL Scouting Combine. He was asked about Russell Wilson in this case, but take a listen to what he's saying because it also applies to Bobby.
It's always been with the guys that I've coached that I'm always going to hang with them, and I'm never going to leave them, and I'm going to be there at the end of all of the good stuff and all of the bad stuff. I'm going to still be there. And so that's it. You know, I'm hanging, and it doesn't matter who the guy is. If you look at all of the guys that have come through our program, just not go back to the college days, but just here at Seattle, regardless of what has happened or has taken place or the things that have been said at all, if you hang with them, it all comes back around. And I like to demonstrate that faith in the relationship and the depth of what we did together, and hang through whatever the growth challenges bring to us along the way. So I'm good.
If you hang with them, it always comes back around. Now, that can apply to any walk of life, right? Like if you try to maintain good relationships, almost always it will find some way to benefit you, help you down the road because those relationships are important. That's exactly what Pete Carroll's saying here. I hang with my guys. I don't turn on them. If Richard Sherman comes out and says that I've lost my way, if Russell Wilson, his agent is speaking saying that I was stubborn or this is a bad organization. If Bobby's talking about how, I handled this release in a horrible way. No matter what, all I'm going to say is Russell Wilson's great. Bobby Wagner's a Hall of Famer. Richard Sherman is one of the best guys I've ever coached, right? You've never heard him say anything else. And where are all three guys right now? TBD with Russell Wilson. But Bobby's back in Seattle, and Richard Sherman has had nothing but good things to say about Pete Carroll.